Hello and welcome to part 6 of the EL-HEMMEH subseries. In this episode we'll talk about the context of which these artifacts were found in, and the researcher will give you the broad framework of what's going on based on this archaeological evidence. You'll start by talking about what carbonization is. Carbonization is the most common form of botanical preservation in archaeological sites. This is caused by exposure of seeds and wood to fire. Through the process of being covered in ash and exposed to high temperature, wood and seeds can be carbonized, although only 10% gets charred in such a way that it becomes perfectly preserved. In robust plant parts such as large seeds, the preservation is perfect, creating a perfect facsimile of what the plant once was, although other parts such as fragile glooms may be deformed or destroyed in the process, with seeds, even in the same genus, being distorted by varying degrees, although this process seems to be minimal in barley. As such, it's not considered to be factual that the plant materials dug up represent an accurate representation of what the plant once was. The perfectibility of the preservation can be controlled by seed size, shell thickness, oil content, and wood density. Moist specimens can survive this process better than dry specimens, although moisture release may cause deformation, such as paw pain, embryo detachment, and tissue expansion. The specimen is likely to carbonize when the temperature is above 300 degrees Celsius for 50 minutes, but it will likely be destroyed if it's between 500 and 700 degrees Celsius for the same duration of time, although alternating periods of heating and cooling are more conducive to preservation through this method. Now on to the researcher's description of the problems with context. As of right now, Dr. White could not establish a direct relationship between the charring events that spawned these samples and the samples themselves in terms of their current location, since most of the types of materials found are Class C contexts, which are landfills which may contain material from multiple sources. This is different than Class A or Class B types, which are rare in such dig sites. Class C sites are the most common type of artifacts found in such dig sites. These can be used to confirm whether or not an unusual event such as an accidental fire occurred in the ancient past. For instance, in other Neolithic sites in the Near East, sites with known accidental house fires within their pedigree have revealed carbonized remnants of both wild barley, oats, and broad beans and lentils in large amounts, while landfills have repeated patterns of materials indicating repeated activity. This creates a high level of uniformity in comparison to what's found in a fire that happens accidentally. Using the information gained from hearths, they found low to moderate amounts of chaff remains, as well as remnants of ground up pieces of grain. This indicates that food grains were often ground up as a preparation, while the chaff may have been used as extra fuel for the fire. In the pre-pottery era site EL-HEMMEH, not one single whole unprocessed barley or wheat seed was found, indicating that most if not all of the grain was processed, and the burnt remnants of chaff in the hearth parts of the site indicate that the chaff was likely used as fuel habitually. In another structure within the same time frame and location, the materials found in the underground bin are identical to the landfill waste found in structure 1. It's speculated that the material found in the waste piles was used in the subfloor preparation material for the construction of the subsurface area. Now on to the conclusions drawn from this context. Based on the research Dr. White came up with and talked about in the last 5 parts, it can be concluded tentatively that there was an extensive culture of grain processing due to the likely remnants of cereal harvesting, threshing, dehusking, and grain grinding, due to the same material being found in both landfills and what's found in subterranean bins and between walls and floors, indicate that the leftover material from the processing process was either buried or used as filler material for walls or floors. It's also speculated that Wild or weedy plants may have been encouraged to grow alongside barley and legumes and harvested as they ripened. As many of these plants were not fully domesticated yet, the distinction between weed and crop may have not been fully developed at that point. This speculation comes from the fact that species found in that area that are often considered weeds were also edible or medicinal in various cultures. For instance, Heliotropium species are often used by Near Eastern people as medicine for treating abscesses or boils. Malva species are often used for wounds or skin ulcers. Peganum harmala was often used in folkloric medicine as an anti-inflammatory and sedative. Plantegos have been historically used for tooth pain and stomach problems, and so on and so forth. Dr. White was unable to determine whether or not the pea specimens or legume specimens were domesticated or not, since the earliest traits of domestication are the loss of pod shattering and the loss of seed dormancy, and these traits are invisible to the naked eye from a plant remains perspective. As a result, the first domesticated legumes cannot be distinguished from wild ones or from close relatives, although the possibility of both legumes and grains being grown together is still a possibility, considering that until the last century, legume species and grain species were grown side by side and harvested independently. In Iraq, for instance, barley was grown intermixed with fava bean, with both being harvested independently. Barley was first to be harvested by a sickle, followed by the beans being harvested by hand picking. There also seems to be a higher level of fruit and nut remnants in the earliest parts of the post-pottery era, and in both the early stages and late stages of the post-pottery era, there were high amounts of fig and pistachio remnants within the dig sites. In modern days, pistachio leaves were often eaten by villagers as salad, and fragments of pistachio nutshells have survived, indicating that the nuts may have also been consumed as well. And on the topic of medicine, at least 5 species of Plantago have been used in Jordan as folkloric medicine, granting the possibility that these species may have been used by the Neolithic peoples for similar purposes. But that covers that. Stay tuned for the last episode of this series. Thank you for watching this video. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to me on BitChute for a greater variety of content, 4 videos a week. And thank you to all my subscribers on both platforms. I appreciate it.